Hey, nerdy sports fan here, talking Week 9 NFL action. This is the opening week of the Nerdy Sports Fans Power Rankings. So check out the Nerdy Sports Fan Weekly for that. But let's get into Houston taking a visit to Jacksonville. Divisional matchups are always fun. The teams know each other very well. And because of that, they tend to be more competitive than they would if they were outside of the division with the same teams. Lesser teams like Miami tend to beat the Patriots here and there, and with more frequency than you would expect, and it's because they're divisional rivals. So Jacksonville v. Houston appears horribly one-sided to most people, but it's just not. Houston's definitely the superior team, albeit almost solely because of Deshaun Watson at this point. They're not so much better that I think they're just going to run Jacksonville out of the stadium. This is a juicy matchup. It really is. Especially considering J.J. Watt just got hurt. J.J. Watt does so much for this defensive front. His loss cannot be accounted for in any way with other roster moves. He's a unique talent in the league. Now, this means they're going to have to adjust for the loss of Watt on the offense, not the defense. The defense will now not be able to stop people as well, period. They will not get off the field as easily. So you can expect third down percentage to suffer. You can expect red zone defense to suffer. You can expect average yards per play, per attempt. Every single statistical measure of the defense will get worse with the absence of J.J. Watt. That's just going to happen when you lose a talent like him. The only way they can make up for it is by making the adjustment to ramp up the tempo on offense. Now, when you have a balanced team, you actually want to slow the tempo down. Use the running backs much more, allow the defense to rest, understand that you have more talent on your roster, and it's just going to shine through over time. You're going to make less mistakes. You're going to have people getting in the end zone rather than having to settle for field goals at a higher clip. You lose a top-tier talent, you have to ramp up the intensity on offense, pedal to the floor. You cannot rely on being able to dictate the tempo to keep your defense rested, because now a rested defense means less. So, with that in mind, this becomes a much more interesting game. It's definitely a feast or famine kind of situation for Houston's offense. They definitely have the talent to feast. Absolutely have the talent to feast. So, does their offensive line hold up? There's going to be more deep routes run in the offense because they're going to have to score more points. So the offensive line has to protect for longer. Deshaun Watson has to be more creative in what he does in this offense. So all of these factors bring about the elephant in the room in Houston, which is how injury prone some of their top talent has been. Deshaun Watson is a mobile quarterback, and he's not a very thick frame guy. He's more of a slender frame build, and that tends to mean you're going to get major leg injuries. The knees are not going to be able to hold up as much because your legs aren't tree trunks. So I worry about Deshaun Watson now being exposed more to opposing defensive lines because they're going to have to just make more happen on offense to account for J.J. Watt's injury. This will, fantasy football-wise, as Deshaun Watson stays healthy, be extremely beneficial to Will Fuller, Kiki Kuti, and DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins especially, because he's not the take the top off the defense guy that Fuller is, He's the catch-all. He's the guy that gets the first down when they need it. And they're going to need those first downs a little bit more now. So I would expect DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller, and Kiki Kuti to all be better value until the injury hits. I don't know if it's going to, but it's definitely far more likely with how they're going to have to play. On the Jacksonville side of things, DJ Chark is just further and further cementing himself as a fantastic number one option for this team. The other receivers have been at best erratic. Leonard Fournette, hey, he's back. Definitely one of the few examples we have left in the league of a true workhorse running back. He is now taking a lot more passes. He's very obviously the number one option as far as a running back goes. And, man, he is fun to watch. He really is. And he's going to feast on this defense in the absence of J.J. Watt. It's just going to happen. I would expect Leonard Fournette to be in line for a 20-point game, much like he had last week. Yeah, very good. Very, very good outing. Especially in a PPR league, expect Fournette to be a 20-plus point performer in this game. The absence of J.J. Watt looms large here. Chark is also going to get his, but he's so dependent on Minshew doing the right thing. And in order to make up for J.J. Watt, the Texans are going to have to do very interesting things on defense. A young quarterback like Minshew may not be prepared to deal with some of the more exotic things that Houston's going to have to do to make up for the loss of Mr. Watt. So it's going to be a situation where either they just don't have the personnel to do that in the absence of Watt, and Minshew is able to find more open men because they're blitzing him more frequently than they normally would have to. Or, well, he just can't dissect where the coverage is and where the blitz is coming from fast enough because he's so young. And the defense takes advantage of that. So it is very much a coin flip. What's going to happen with Mr. Minshew? Leave him on the bench. There's far better options for quarterback than him. But that's going to affect DJ Chark. I would expect him to get a minimum of 10, a maximum of 20 points. So you're ranging here from a wide receiver, like a top-end wide receiver 3 to a wide receiver 1. It's a very, very wide range for Mr. Chark because of what you can expect from the Houston defense and Gardner Minshew as an adjustment to the loss of J.J. Watt. So Chark is a high floor, high ceiling wide receiver 2. Leonard Fournette is a must start running back 1. Carlos Hyde is a running back 2 in this. I would expect them to jump out to a lead with the wide receivers and try to dictate the amount of tempo late in the game, just be unsuccessful at it. So I would expect Hyde to get his touches, which can potentially lead to a very strong game. So he's a running back 2. Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins are must starts. Will Fuller's a wide receiver 2, Hopkins a wide receiver 1. Kiki Kuti hasn't been used a heck of a lot since he's returned from injury, but they do use him in some gadget plays. They're going to need to dust those off a little bit more often now, so he is a risk flex play. A big risk, too. So I would say only bother with him if you're desperate. Deshaun Watson's a QB1 in every league at this point, and I would start I would start Jacksonville's defense. They're going to get after Deshaun Watson. If your league scores sacks extremely well, like mine does, that's going to make up for the amount of points that are scored against them. In a divisional matchup like this, I would expect it to still be close, and I would expect Jacksonville's talented defensive front to be able to get home against Deshaun Watson, especially since they're going to have to be riskier on offense in the absence of Watt. That's what I have for this game. As far as the line goes, quickly, this is a 1.5 point spread. It's very, very tight. I don't touch it. I think this game is going to be tight. I like Houston to win, but only just barely. So it would not surprise me if Jacksonville pulls this out. Check out the rest of my videos for more fantasy football advice, and hit up the Nerdy Sports Fan Weekly for our first ever power ranking.